We got Rob Brown, Brendan Martin here with you this morning. Big show, man. It is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. We have got a lot to cover, but look, oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that, the Gator.
I got all sort. That's the Gator.
Yeah.
That's gonna go up.
I got a full mount Bobcat I'm gonna bring up here tomorrow.
I gotta paint him, and then wait, Barnwood Brenda.
Yep.
And I've got
Barnwood Brenda.
I've got my.
There it is.
Yeah.
I love it. All 16. We love them all. SEC. Hey, take a picture with your phone of the QR code because we're broadcasting live simultaneously on 7 channels: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all over the place. And then catch us live or watch us anytime you want on your commute, at the gym, walking through the neighborhood, and enter our chat room. It's a great place. We'll answer your questions. We'll do the best we can to answer them. If we're not, we'll get to them eventually. But let's get started, man. We've got Anwar Richardson, Orangebloods.com. I absolutely love this guy. Not only is he one of the nicest people you'll talk to, but he really knows what's going on with Texas and the big picture of college sports. And talking to him in the pre-show hours, a Detroit Lions writer on the beat for years. Job and him have a lot in common. Patience. Last few years have been big, but anyway, Anwar, you are a great dad. I was just looking at some Texas stuff last night. Kids playing soccer. Brendan's a soccer dad. The travel soccer. It never ends. But
off season, baby, off season. That's a good time right now.
If possible.
Just sitting out there, just baking in this heat, just watch. I loved it when my kid played basketball for a few years. I was inside, I was just having a good time, bringing my Yeti. Now I got to stay hydrated, man. I'm scared to drink out there at 90-something degrees out there, man.
You got to go out with the chairs. You got to go out. I don't even bother with the chairs anymore. I can't sit in the heat. I got to find the different, I'll find the one shady spot of the light pole at 2 p.m. in July. That's like this little skinny shadow. And I just kind of slide into that for about an hour to see if I can.
Your life is different than my son. My son's a goalkeeper.
Oh.
And so I follow him from one side to the other. So I just sit there, and I got to sit away from the parents because God forbid they say something about my son. I'm going to get thrown out, right? So
right.
I sit away intentionally. So which means dude, right now if you go to the back of my SUV, I got 3 chairs. I've got a tent. I've got an umbrella, and it stays in there at all times.
Bro, I know. This is my off season for the next month because we do travel. So they start training at end of next month again. So they give them a month off, and I had to pull out my Tahoe. I literally, this is no joke. I was supposed to go out on a date with this girl, and she's like, "Hey, can you give me a ride to my truck?" And I was like, I don't know if I should do that. And I was like, yeah, get in. And she got in. She literally was like, you should have someone clean this. I'm like, you don't understand. It's a locker room. It's a mobile locker room, man.
That smell you can't get away, by the way.
Can't get it out.
Cleat smell.
Cleat smell.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's
horrible.
Well,
it's like all my gear in my truck. I do try to keep it clean, but you're right. If you're not careful, you're going to find somebody in there one day. Man, you talk about a month from now, we're going to be in Atlanta for SEC Media Days. And, it's going to be, it's exciting. But right now, what's going on out in Austin, it's really fun to watch, the stories about Eli Manning. There's so much, and he's trying to do everything he can. And Steve Sarkisian, it looks like.
Eli or Arch?
I'm sorry, Arch. Well,
okay.
I get so confused.
Okay, no problem.
I'm from Memphis. We've got Manning on the brain all the time.
True.
But no, Arch Manning, and think about it, my kids are a little older, but you think about when you're 19, 20 years old, talk about what day-to-day life is like in a city like Austin, one of the coolest cities in America. And now you got on the 40 acres, Texas football, 2 straight years, a game away for playing for everything.
Well, the thing is, the thing about Arch is as you're starting to see him a little bit more, you're starting to see that he's a real person. Yeah. And I know that sounds, it's like a real person. Like, what does that mean? It's like, what I mean by that is not pretentious. he doesn't walk around like I'm bigger or better or anyone else. I don't know if you saw anything over the weekend, but there's this video that a lot of people have been talking about this week of Arch Manning going to a camp in St. Louis. And if you can look at it on Twitter or something like that, and they show Arch basically in a predominantly black neighborhood at the cookout, and he's just chilling. Yeah. Like he's just like one of the boys. I'm just hanging out. Like I ain't thinking much about this. Like I'm just here. And he's just the most down-to-earth kid. Like he's a kid. The one thing about the family that they wanted to make sure that he's done is just basically just be a kid, right? Just be who you are. Like a lot of people think that, okay, Arch is going to be one and done after this year, right? And look, I will stand on this until proven wrong. When Arch Manning decides that he's going to come out for the NFL draft, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, because you can't have a world. You can't be the GM who says, hey, look, Mr. Owner. Yeah, there you go, right? You get sit, and he's just chilling, right? Yeah. I'm just here. I'm one of the guys having a good time. I'm throwing up signs. I'm wearing my cardigan, but I'm cool. Like I'm just And I'm like at home. It's like I'm back in New Orleans, right? Yeah. Like he's hanging, he's having a good time, and like, and again, he went to work. This is Ryan Wingo, who's from St. Louis, a 5-star receiver.
That's right.
You're gonna hear a lot from. Yeah. Arch went there and to support him for one of his camps. So he obviously flies there. He's on his own dime, and he's like. They're like, hey, we're gonna have a cookout this weekend. He's like, all right, cool. Like it's not, this is home, and this is a guy who relates to other people, right? This is a guy who relates to other people. So I go back to what I was trying to say was, you're not going to be the GM who says to the owner, hey, look. I know that when you draft this Manning guy, you're going to make a lot of money in season ticket sales. I know you're going to make a lot more money in corporate sponsors. I know there's going to be a lot of eyes that are on you. I know this could be a generational thing for the next 10 years or so, 15 years. But hear me out. There's this left tackle from Ole Miss. And I really, no, you're going to get fired, all right? Because you're not going to tell any owner of the NFL team that I know you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But hear me out. I think we got a good player. No. Give me the money. Get me another good player just as good in the second round. So that's why I'm convinced no matter what happens, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But I can tell you that from the Manning side of things, their belief is all that stuff is great, but we want you to be a kid now.
Yeah.
We want you to enjoy yourself now, because they know when you get to the pros, it ain't fun anymore. It's not fun. Ask Peyton how fun it was his first couple of years in the NFL. Ask Eli how much fun it was in his first couple of years in the NFL. Ask their dad, their grandpa, how fun it was, right? So their thing is go out, enjoy Austin, be a kid. There's no rush. That thing, the NFL thing, it'll be waiting for you. But this is the most fun you're probably going to have in your lifetime as a football player. Go out there and live your best life. So he goes out. You'll see him around town. You'll bump into him, and he's just a normal guy, And so that's what makes him really so cool.
Well, and then you think about Roman Harper, was here Monday night at the Touchdown Club. He played at Alabama, and he said, I was picked 43rd. He goes, you don't ever forget that. He goes, I drove down to New Orleans, and he was a rookie when actually, it was after he finished in 2005. So he was there shortly after Katrina had hit. And he said, man, you're getting paid money and you're a professional athlete. And then it hits you like, wow, you miss college.
Yeah.
They really, and every time Archie Manning, his grandfather ever comes to Memphis and speaks to a quarterback or touchdown club, I'm not, you can't exaggerate this. He's the most humble guy. And they have, I believe I read, and you would know, he made, Arch promised to his grandfather, Archie Manning, he wouldn't touch that NIL money until he was the official starter. I think that's a cool story. And then him going back to St. Louis with his teammate. And I used to work for a company, A.G. Edwards, based out of St. Louis. that is probably the biggest thing to happen to those kids. And that's a great story.
Yeah, I mean they're basically getting to hang around two future NFL players, right? And but yes, there was this thing. There's two things really when you mentioned the Arch thing, and I think the other thing that makes him kind of special, as you talk it out a little bit, was you got to think to him. So the plan a couple of years ago was that going into Quinn was not supposed to be the quarterback of the 2024 season. The expectation was that Quinn was going to have such a good season the year before that Quinn wouldn't have to come back in 2024. He could just go ahead and declare, and then it would be Arch Manning's team. And then Quinn didn't have the season that he really hoped for. The college advisory committee didn't really recommend that he would come out. And so Quinn decides he's going to come back in 2024. And in this age of the transfer portal, that guy didn't say, you know what, I'm out of here. You know what? I'm not going to sit here and wait another year. What am I doing? But that guy said, you know what? If I got to sit on the bench one more year before I'm a starter, so be it. And that's why I tell myself, if Arch Manning can sit and wait, everybody can sit and wait. Everybody can sit and wait your turn. But one thing they understood, and they understand that there's a process of development that it takes to become an NFL quarterback or NFL player, and they've never been interested in rushing the process. The thing I was told, even when he committed, is that the family believes that he's got 5 years to play college football if necessary, and they're not going to rush the process. So again, just being smart, being humble, looking at the big picture, sitting behind Quinn and being supportive, being basically a guy who comes in on short yardage packages where that's not necessarily his forte. No one's ever thought about that, even though he's a tremendous athlete, right? You see him play basketball, things like that. He's a very athletic. People forget. They always want to talk about, Peyton and Eli, and they forget that his dad is Cooper. It's look, Cooper was the athletic Manning in that family. He was the wide receiver. He was the athletic guy. So when you see Arch Manning being fast, you got to say, well, yeah, his dad was a damn good athlete himself, right? So, forget the uncles. Look at the direct, correlation, which is there. So, I think for Texas fans, I think they're really excited. They're hoping that Arch would be the guy that maybe could do the things that Quinn wasn't able to do as far as the pocket presence is concerned, and really kind of delivering a little bit more in some of those big games. And so there's this optimism that Quinn laid a very, really good foundation, but now Arch can be the guy that can maybe take them up to the next level, because the defense is going to be really good this year. The defense is going to be very, very good. The only question really becomes as far as what is the offense going to look like. But they feel like when you got a guy like him, even if your offensive line, even if you lost some guys to the draft, when you've got his versatility, he's not going to be a dual threat quarterback. Let's get that clear. He's not a dual threat quarterback, but he's got scrambling ability that's going to keep defenses honest, and he's fast as heck. There's this belief that he's going to be able to take it to the next level and be a great ambassador for Texas.
Yeah, and he is. And I'm going to go out to Austin this year to a game. It is an incredible atmosphere. And you think about the offensive line for Texas. Aren't y'all replacing 4 starters on there? Yeah. And I want to get your thoughts about, too, Wingo, the receiver. I remember when they signed him out of St. Louis. He's from St. Louis or East St. Louis? Remember,
you got. I know St. Louis now. Yeah. You got to dig a little bit deeper for me to find out what.
Yeah, East St. Louis was a national powerhouse, like Cincinnati Moeller for a long time. I mean, it's just literally across the river from downtown. But I think about Wingo. I mean, in this Texas, 2 straight years, you were a game away from doing the whole thing. Last year, was it against Kentucky? Texas ran for 292 yards, just ran it down their throat. And I've got my friend Jimmy McDavid out in Weatherford, Texas, watching. He walked on when we were all, freshmen at Texas. And he paid his dues. I mean, it ain't sexy. It ain't good. But I've never met anybody that said, they go, if I could go back to college, I'd do it. And you nailed it, knocked it out of the park. Anwar, about, hey, man, I bet he does stay the whole time. I won't be shocked at all. And I think I hope that resonates and kind of clicks to some other guys.
Yeah, I think you probably get 2 seasons out of him. There's a metric that they look at that they feel like there needs to be about 30 starts in college football before you're kind of NFL ready.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 at this moment. So now look, listen, if everything just falls into place for the young man, right? And let's just if Texas goes undefeated, right, and they win a national championship and he wins a Heisman and things like, well, then you may have a conversation as far as and the Saints have the number 1 pick, right? All those things you may figure like, oh, maybe, but I still think that I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 2-year thing for him, and he will have this opportunity here at Texas to your point. They were able to get to the semifinals the last 2 years, which is a great accomplishment. And they were able to do that, obviously when there was a 4-team playoffs, right? So now it's really about this team and Arch figuring out, okay, how do we break through? First of all, how do you beat Georgia in the season, right? You got to start there. Like, how do you get past Georgia, which beat them twice, last year, Ohio State, right? So we know that they're SEC ready. Like, that's not a question anymore. Everyone kind of understands that. You can kind of look at the schedule that they have this year and say, hey, it's kind of favorable because of the talent level that they have, on this team. And so, it's really now just about that breakthrough that needs to occur for them and getting out of the, to the next level for them. So, again, I think the hope is that Arch will be able to, like I said, be maybe the guy that Quinn wasn't, at times, and look, it's not to knock Quinn because I think Quinn was a good quarterback, but, you kind of need to be great. And if you're going to be a Steve Sarkisian quarterback, you got to be kind of more great than good. And look, the NFL said he was okay because he ended up being a 7th round pick, right? So the NFL was able to look at him and say, hey, there's some flaws that were in your game. But, as relates to, Arch and everybody else, so they've got some weapons. Like Ryan Wingo, who you've talked about, had his LASIK surgery in the offseason. There's a funny story as relates to that, which was, they were earlier this year, the coaches just noticed that, this guy's not really catching the ball too well. And they're working on all kinds of things and hand placements and all these kind of things. And then finally he just tells them like, hey, man, I don't know, coach, but I only really see the ball when it gets closer to me. But outside of that, it's just really kind of fuzzy, kind of blurry. And so they said, all right, well, I don't know, maybe we should let's go sit into an optometrist here. Lo and behold, they say he was about as blind as a bear. Now, I didn't know bears were blind. Like, I don't know what the eyesight of a bear is or is not supposed to look like. But that was the analogy that was given to me. So then he goes, he gets LASIK surgery. And so now all of a sudden he can see. They've got some good weapons there on offense. I think you talked about the offensive line. Yes, they lost some guys and they lose, like a Kelvin Banks who, ends up being a 1st round pick. But keep an eye on a guy by the name of Trevor Gooseby, who's going to fill in that left tackle. Former basketball player. He can, at 6'7", about 300 pounds, he can still get up and dunk the basketball. So he's a very athletic guy. And they've got 5 stars. The one thing Sark has been able to do is been able to recruit, and so their thing has been, Sark learned when he was at Alabama. Alabama, 1 year, they lose 10, 12, whatever guys to the NFL. And they're like, oh, my God, what are they going to do? And the next thing you know, they just run in the next set of guys. Next year, they have a bunch of guys.
High school football is the best.
And that's the program that they've been trying to build here, guys, which is, yes, you've lost stuff. But I think the Texans in the past, you lose a guy or you lose Sam Ellinger, and you're like, oh, man, what the hell's going to happen here? Like, we ain't got nothing left. And everything now has been like, oh, yeah, well, you lose Quinn Ewers. Oh, yeah, you're going to throw in an Arch Manning. Like, it's like that, like we're saying, Brendan.
How do you feel about the Aggies down the road in College Station? Because, everything's bigger in Texas. Well, we saw a bunch of Lambos on the field the other day. I mean, good God, it's like, I don't know what's going on in Texas, but that ain't going on everywhere else. I'll tell you that right now. So I don't know. But with that being said, reports are 35 to 40 million this year.
Yeah,
on the team.
you
Is that close? Is that close?
I don't know what that number is because we don't. It's hard to get that exact number, right?
Okay, so is it north of 20?
Oh, definitely north of 20. Yeah,
like it's got to be 30. Probably close to 30.
I would park at 30 and then kind of look around and see from there. I would say that's probably about accurate. But I mean, it's to the victor goes the spoils. I mean, it's the reason why I've always said I understood why Nick Saban decided he had to get out, because when you're going to come to an era where you can actually pay players above the table, well, the state of Alabama is not going to produce more millionaires this year than the state of Texas is going to do, right? I mean, that's just the money is just here. That's just what's going to happen. Now, the hard part is you can't buy them all. Like there's other programs that still get their money together. Texas Tech, by the way, is the team that's known that they're spending the most in the transfer portal in 2025, right? And so you can't win them all. You can't. But yeah, do they have it? 100%. And Texas A&M has it as well. Like Texas A&M has money. They're not sisters of the poor over there. And you asked me about A&M. I don't crap on them like other people do. First and foremost, I think they have a good coach. I think they have a good program. And I think when I look at their schedule, I see a lot of winnable games for them. Maybe Notre Dame in the first four is a coin flip for them. I think Auburn might be a little bit better, but Mississippi State, I mean, there's no reason why this team shouldn't start up with 4-1, 5-1, anything like that. We'll see what Florida looks like. They should be better than Arkansas. LSU might be a coin flip game. Once we get down the line, this is they're a decent team. And they were good last year. So I won't sleep on A&M at all. I think they've got a good coach. I think they've got a good program. I think it's different than their other rival, Texas' other rival, which is Oklahoma. Like I think that one's a little bit different, and I think that one might be a little bit more on life support with Brent Venables. But Elko in year 2, and they're recruiting really well right now. By the way, they're doing a really good job of recruiting. So I won't sleep on Texas A&M at all. By the way,
And Anwar, look, I know we promised to get you out in about 20, but you're so good. Another thing about you is that you've got a lot of class. I mean, you realize what A&M is, and you know what, the bottom line is, I think we cover all these different schools in the league, and they've all, A&M and Texas have more money than anybody. But man, it's fun having Texas in here now, because when they come to Gainesville this year, you're going to have 2 of the top 3, probably the top 2 high school football states in America. That's going to be one of the biggest games ever.
Rob, isn't it? And of course you too, Anwar. Isn't it part of being in the SEC? The history of it is getting it up every year, right? It's like, and that's where Sark is huge, because this is Bama background, and he understands that. To your point, Anwar, he knows how to reload, right? He knows that he's got to be ready, because next year that schedule's not going away. And you don't want to be that team that falters, has one or 2 bad years. It really can set you back. And I think Sark gets that.
Yeah. I mean, no, he does. And again, that's what they understand. That's why they, recruit so well. Right. And so you get that number 1 class that's there. You're going to have a little bit of attrition. Of course, guys are going to fall off, but then you just stack the talent. And, before it used to be, a program that, you just wanted to make sure you got guys in here, and it was almost risk adverse. Now there's this saying, no, we're just stacking the room like the other programs, like the Alabamas of the world, like the Georgias of the world, right? You're just going to stack the room, and you're going to come here, you're going to compete. If all goes well, you get on the field. If not, if you go, but the one thing about Texas that's interesting, when it comes to the transfer portal, it's not like Texas has lost key guys to the portal. Right. Like, guys stay. They understand, like, hey, I'll sit here, I'll wait my turn, I'm okay. But it's not like other programs, they lose. You lose your starting quarterback, and you lose your starting left tackle. All these guys go in. One, it helps that, look, from an NIL perspective, you're going to get taken care of here in Texas, right? So you can walk away from your check, but you might get a lesser one. And the other thing is, more importantly though, is Sark is really honest. You know, he's more of a throwback. He's an NFL guy on how he treats things, right? And so the NFL is just straight laced. This is how it is, and there's no BS associated with it, right? You know, we grew up in an era where coaches were full of BS, right? You know, they would tell you they recruit you as one thing, you step on campus, and totally different, right?
Yeah.
And do stuff you can do. But now in this era, you have to be honest with kids because they have the portal as an option. And so Sark is just a straight shooter. He's very open. He's very honest. He also does these things in the off season where he, you know, because of things that Sark has been through, he likes transparency. So they have their days where they just basically just sit down and talk as individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like these group sessions where they talk about where have you been through? What have you been through in life? Tell us about your mother. Like they'll sit down like as a group and really dive into it, not non-football related. So they become a little bit more of a family. There's more culture things like that. So it's happened there. And the last thing before I go is just that it's really interesting. I saw this press release from Texas the other day. We're talking a lot about their football program, but it also, one of their headlines was that Texas finished with the University of finished with 13 NCAA top 10 finishes on all the different sports. And it also talked about they had a league best 8 SEC conference titles in that calendar year. So football has done well, but overall, when you talk about Texas being a part of the SEC, they've acclimated really, really well, not only in football, but in all sports across the board.
Yeah, it's a natural fit, no doubt. And that's they probably have 23 sports. I mean, that's pretty damn incredible.
And by the way, you said Texas coming to Florida might be the biggest thing in the swamp. I think every Florida State fan would balk at what you just said, because I think FSU in the swamp, they would probably say that would probably be some of the biggest games that they've had there. Don't you think so?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know FSU had a football team anymore, so I just
not anymore. I'm talking about in the past. I'm talking about
the
Charlie Ward days and everything like that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they had this chant. It was annoying. I don't know.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, Anwar, it's like it's going to be kind of like when the Beatles came to New York in 1964 and got off the plane and played at Shea Stadium. None of us were around there, but it's going to be when Texas comes. I remember when they came to Auburn when I was in college, it was a big ass deal. And Mossy Cade and Jerry Gray, they had 18 players on their starting 22 were drafted. Okay, they were really. And they beat all
I'm going to need you to give me an updated reference, by the way. Like I need you next time I'm on the show, your analogies need to be of this century. Okay. Like,
yeah, I agree. That's a rule. New rule.
No.
New rule.
You know, I follow Texas always, but the first time Texas comes to your school, it is a big deal. And but it's fun. But Anwar, let people know how they can follow you. You do
just
great
real
work.
simple. On the screen, Anwar Richardson. And by the way, if you follow me, just know that I'm not someone who's going to flood your timeline with a bunch of tweets. So I'm pretty selective. So if you do follow me, I won't annoy you. I can promise you that much. You won't get 50 things a day, no political views, none of that stuff. Like I got, like, as Brandon, I got kids. Like I don't have time for all that stuff.
I don't really have time for that stuff, man.
I don't have any time. I literally got to do other things and then go pick up my kids, and then we got soccer stuff tonight. So that's all I got time for. So
I love the belts, by the way. I love the belts on your.
Those are fantasy football belts, by the way. Those are fantasy football championships. There's another one that I won, and I retired after that. And I've never ordered the belt because I actually don't know where I'm supposed to put it. But those are people sometimes go on the show like, man, did you box? I'm like, well, if you did me kicking your ass in fantasy football, I boxed, but no, those are fantasy football championships.
I love it. Anwar, thank you, man. Look forward to our next visit.
Thanks,
Have
Anwar.
a great day. That is fun. Dudley Dawson back from injured reserve last week. Glad to have you back.
Off the IR. Welcome.
By the way, I think you can use the a reference like when Prince and Morris Day and the Time got together in the movie. That's probably a better reference.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And Texas, you know what's crazy about Texas is when John McAfee was there, and you think about all these coaches they had, it took them a long time to get it right, but they got it right with Sark. And then you look at Arkansas. You had it going with Bobby Petrino, and then it wasn't, and now he's back on the staff. And kind of a segue into where I'm going to go. Year 2, Talon Green, who's from the Metroplex out there in Dallas-Fort Worth. By the way, man, at Media Days last year, all those Texas kids, they'll claim to be from Dallas, and they'll start just going at each other. No, you're from Denton. You're from, Mansfield.
Just loud in Texas, man. I don't know. I grew up in Colorado. We know where the Texans were. They'd be screaming down the mountain. Yeah. Skiing down the hill. Yeah. And it's slow in the left lane.
And there's a lot of them in Fayetteville because so many of those Arkansas grads moved to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, and their kids now are coming back to Fayetteville. 34,000.
Get in-state tuition.
Yeah.
They do. They get in-state tuition.
Yeah. Well, there's 34,000 students up there and growing. It's incredible.
Dudley, do you think, because Anwar was on talking about, and I got the sense of, of course, they're Texas, they're arrogant. I mean, that's Texas. But do you think it's going to be a little harder to put together 5-10 years in the SEC? Do you think that matters? Because I think Texas fans like, well, we're in the SEC now. We're welcomed. We're done. We're in. It's cool. I was just making the point to him is like, it's hard. You have a couple of bad years or a couple of down years in the SEC, it jumps up on you. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think obviously Texas came in, did a great job last year, should again this year. If Arch Manning is everything that they try to say he is, I'm going to let him go ahead and prove it. I think he certainly has the potential, but he's been anointed the best quarterback in the nation. Not because of his play, but because of his last name.
Yeah.
And but I do think they've got a quality athletic program, as you said. They've come along, looks like they've got the right coach there, and recruiting's going well for them. And maybe Texas is truly back after advertising that's been back for a long, long time.
Yeah, well, like baseball, man. Last night. Big win, Arkansas pitchers. Was it you that said last week, one of our guests, and whoever it was, it's one of the best takeaways. They said 1 through the pitching. So 1 through 4, I like LSU better. 1 through 10, I like Arkansas. Well, you get into the College World Series, you're not running, a couple of races. You're running a triathlon. And that Gage Wood from Batesville, Arkansas, I was talking to my friend Jim McClellan over in Little Rock, and their engineering firm, their families, you met Jim back at his house there. What a hog. I mean, he and that group of about 20 guys that meet at Bossa Nova in Little Rock, they're going to have over 30 scholarships, by the way, for the Sigma Nu chapter this year. These people love Arkansas. And he sounded like a kid when I was talking to him after Arkansas had won last night. But this is a big deal. Dave Van Horn. You are a true grit journalist, okay? You tell it like you see it. You're not a fan. You're there to report. But let's talk about the rematch tonight at 6 p.m. on the Color TV with LSU. And then, you got Coastal Carolina and Louisville. And by the way, you do know how to pronounce Coastal Carolina's nickname, don't you? After that.
Chanticleers.
Roy D. Mercer texted me and said, my God, if he'd have been at that press conference, he's, Coach, how are the Chandeliers doing? The guy probably would have grabbed him.
Yeah, it's you'd much rather be in LSU situation right now, just needing to win one game. But Arkansas certainly has bounced back from that first game with some great pitching. I mean, until the 9th inning last night, I think they had given up one run. After the second inning of the first game, they'd given up one run in 23 innings. And obviously those runs last night were unearned. They were throwing it down the right field line and all those kind of things. But, they're glad to be alive. That you can't play if you're not still involved in the tournament. So they'll see what it is. It would be such an unbelievable narrative if they were to come through this, which I think only 3 teams have done, get to the finals and win it for Dave Van Horn. It's a tall, tall task. as long as you're alive, you can keep pushing. And if they continue to get the pitching that they've had, obviously they're going to have a chance. But you have to put up more runs than they have been doing.
Yeah, that's the thing. The pitching has to be as good as it's been because the bats just aren't alive. What's up with that? Didn't they average close to about 9 runs a game during the season?
Yeah, and early on, it was it was 10, and they were really you got some bats coming alive last night, so we'll see if it proceeds. But yeah, it's been the pitching and a couple of timely hits, but they have struggled with the RISP.
Well, you think about in that environment, it's a different. I mean, Charles Schwab Field. There's really not a lot of wind. It's really hot, but they're used to that. So, what is it you think? Anxiety, just the pitching, and I'm telling you, just looking over in that other bracket. Coastal Carolina, remember when Butch Thompson was on here talking about those 3 senior pitchers with ERAs really low, and they're not missing a beat. This is a really strong field that is in Omaha, these 4 teams.
I really, I wish Arkansas luck and their fans and all that, but right now, LSU and Coastal Carolina look like the 2 that's going to play, and that would be a heck of a series. At best 2 of 3 there that starts on Saturday. If Arkansas were to get there, then as you said, I've been on the IL a little bit. We'll load up the vehicle and get on up there after getting back healthy.
Yeah, and that is the best news of all. So Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville, got a lot of Tennessee fans that say, Brown, I watch your show different times every day, but I always watch it live when Vince is on with Dudley because being in Memphis, we get the split end of the stick when it comes to coverage on the Vols. So get your Vol coverage here. Dudley, talking about the World Series out there, you had some cool notes that you sent me and stop the presses because you got to go to see something that not many people did with Tennessee basketball. Let's talk about what's on the menu.
Yeah, well, great to be on with you guys as always. Honor that you guys invite me each week, and
love it.
Dudley, great to hear that you're bouncing back so quickly. We missed you last week. I thought we were going to get, after Arkansas eliminated Tennessee in the Super Regional, I thought we were going to get a pile on that continued. But,
not from that guy.
I certainly the best thing was that before my head, and let's just put it that way, my head started acting up. I got to finish off that Arkansas Tennessee series, which was as entertaining as I thought it would be. Everybody played their part, and a lot of fun, and I'm going to enjoy coming to see the new stadium next year.
Yeah, scoreboard is there. There's no doubt about it. And I said this, people asked me going in, would you take the SEC or the field? I took the SEC versus the field. Now, I know Coastal is playing as well, if not better than anybody right now. But, man, both of those 2 teams, whoever was going to lose that first game, I still thought that they had the ability to come out of a loser's bracket. Lo and behold, they have to go through the other to dig out of that hole. But they're good enough to. So the SEC for the 8th consecutive year is going to have a team in the finals, and I think it's like 15 of the last 16 College World Series. They've had a team in that championship series. So it's incredible what the Southeastern Conference did. 8 straight years. And 16 times in the last 17 tournaments that the SEC has had a team in the finals and playing for a national championship, and of course having won it for a bunch of years in a row as well. But to answer your question, Rob, yeah, we had an open practice available to us at Tennessee. The basketball team, practices in the summer. Everybody does, and we got a chance to not only see
legal now.
What's that?
I said it's legal now. Some of them practice. It wasn't, but whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like even in football, for a lot of times you couldn't even do anything with your team for all the summer months. You had to rely on the strength and conditioning coach. Give me a break. As as high as the stakes are, like your coaches can't talk to them in the off season, like acting like, no one's going to make that contact anyway, like you said, or have workouts anyway. Just have it with some parameters, not go overboard, and still let them be around your team and get better. So they're about 3 weeks into the summer workouts. So we got thrown a bone at Tennessee, and Rick Barnes is always entertaining, man, because he's on those guys constantly, and you got to be tough to be coached and yelled at by Rick Barnes, but he's going to love you too when you do something right. And then also on the side, he just this notion that he is on just this exit tour. People thought that when he first got here. Yeah. And it's the farthest thing from the truth. He still loves the game. He's adapted to the game. So that's always interesting to see them. But another big thing from practice yesterday is all the newcomers. We only have 4 returning players, one of the few teams in the country that does not have an exit from the transfer portal. But even with that, because they had so many guys leaving and they were short on roster spots last year as it is, it's virtually a brand new team. Couple of Post and Akpar and Phillips that were there last year, as was JP Estrella, but he couldn't play last year. And then Bishop Boswell was dealing with an illness, so he wasn't at practice. So it was like us getting a chance to see and put our eyes on a lot of these newcomers from the portal, from their signing class. And then one specifically, and that's 5-star Nate Ament, who was one of the last guys to commit. But my goodness, he's a lottery pick. He could be a top 5, maybe even number 1 in next year's draft. We'll see. He's got to show out this year in order for that to be a reality. But this guy is almost 6'11" with 6-foot guard skills. He can handle the ball. He can move. He can shoot. He can play multiple positions. He is, in addition to being 6'11", he's just long. And I loved his demeanor at practice. Really impressive. You looked at him and were like, that's an NBA guy. He just looks so different than any Rick Barnes player at Tennessee. But then also, he didn't act like a 5-star, like a prima donna or anything like that. Not at all. Just wanted to be coached and always tuned in on what was going on. So it was cool to see a lot of those players, including the 5-star Ament.
Man, how nice is that? I met Nate obviously during the recruiting process. Arkansas really wanted him, and it was a tough one for him. But it's interesting, since we're dropping basketball knowledge here. We actually had a moment there where the New York Knicks seem to be expressing interest in Cal, but as everybody else they've talked to seemed to say, I don't want that job. I tried the NBA, it didn't work. He said he's got a 5-year commitment here, and he's planning on fulfilling that. And then he went out and signed 2 7-footers from behind the Iron Curtain, in the next couple of days. So as Vince is talking about, Tennessee is working on loading back up. Arkansas has done too. We'll get through football, and then there'll be some more excitement with basketball. It's year round with the sports in this thing, especially now in even women's softball.
Yeah, and Vince, you're talking about a lot, and you get on your column here of notes. Tennessee has a lot of players going in the draft. In past years, remember when they would have the Major League Baseball draft during the Omaha College World Series, and you'd have a pitcher 3 hours from starting on the mound. He's picked 3rd. I mean, what's going through his head besides a lot of money and a lot of crazy stuff? Talk about what's going to happen when the draft does come. And what's the exact date of the Major League Baseball draft?
Yeah, that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Actually,
July 13th through 15th.
Yeah, there you go.
Atlanta. Yeah, same
That's
time.
Right. Yeah. I should have remembered that, because it does overlap. By the way, if you're a wrestling fan, and I imagine there's some of the viewers and listeners to this show that are wrestling fans too, the WWE is going to be in Atlanta that weekend as well.
Goldberg returns.
That's right.
Hold time out now. Wait a minute. Wrestling fans, do you think about Greco-Roman wrestling? We're talking now, in the South. There's a spelling for that. Yes. WRASSLIN. Wrestling. My friend David Aquadro, Quad, watching over in Memphis right now. Prairie Farms Milk. He is the milkman for all the schools in the Mid-South. He is a wrestling history savant. So is Scotty Sneed and Tom Dorian too. They're watching, but I am a wrestling junkie. So we're gonna be there for media days, Major League Baseball draft, and some wrestling.
Yeah.
Can we say Uber from the Omni?
Get there early. Get there early.
Wow. Hey, today is my anniversary with my beautiful wife, Paige.
Okay.
And for the longest time, she tried to get me to pronounce wrestling as she does. It's just not working. I mean, our son finished second in the wrestling state championship, and I still was call it wrestling because you've done something for 61 years. You can't just change it.
That is true.
I mean, there's an apostrophe at the end there. That thing.
I think so.
And I mean, it's much like how my beautiful late mom used to say that we're going to Walmart's, which was strange to me because we only had one in Newport.
Yes. It's a very common spell in all my clients over the years. They don't ask, how's my Walmart stock doing? They go, how's my Walmarts? I think there's a K in there somewhere. Yeah. Go ahead, Vince. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, you bring up Tampa and Mama Ferrara for me all the time. And growing up in Tampa, we'd go to wrestling all the time. There was an armory there in town, and that's where all the big wrestling events would come. So something my dad and I would do growing up. And Tampa's a huge wrestling town. Like so many big wrestlers either are from there or live there. So a huge wrestling community. So I've always loved it as a kid. And always think of my dad with wrestling with it, but still a fan today. So I just want to add that to Major League Baseball. But to your point originally, Tennessee right now in Phoenix, there's an MLB combine, MLB draft combine, similar in some ways to the NFL combine. They bring up a lot of the top prospects to do interviews. They'll have them do, some workout stuff for the guys that choose to do so. Tennessee has 8 players there at the combine. In addition to that, they have 7 signees and 2 commitments that during this process of the portal and JUCO and all that. That's a lot. And all those guys, the 8 guys for Tennessee and those signees, they're all projected, if you go by player rankings for the draft, top 5. That's a lot of Tennessee, more than we've seen. The maximum players drafted, the most Tennessee's ever had, is 10. There's a good chance that they're going to blow through that and maybe not too far into the draft to get to 10. We'll see. But it could. The signees is the one that is really, and Dudley, this, you got to get some of those guys. You got to split it up. Like some of them can go from your great signing classes, but you got to get some of them on campus. You cannot get completely wiped out in a MLB draft, hurricane to where you got nothing left. You got to have something left standing, some structures left standing to come into your program with new talent. Yeah.
I mean, that LSU National Championship World Series team in 23 had 13. Mm-hmm. So that's, I guess, I don't know if that's the standard all time for the SEC or college baseball, but you see Tennessee pushing that. And Arkansas, man, that pitching.
They'll have a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah. Good God. Gage Wood is what year?
He is he's ready. He's a junior.
He's drafted.
He's eligible to be a very rich man after July 13th through 15th. And he's a great kid. Much like Arkansas and Texas were rivals back in the day, Batesville and Newport were. So it takes a lot for me to say that somebody's nice from Batesville. But as I've gotten older, the rivalries wound down a little bit. And kudos to Gage and to Price Holmes, who is a former Newport athlete, who he gave a lot of credit to for the strength and conditioning and getting him ready. But couldn't have happened to a nicer guy after a tough year when he, with his second outing, a shoulder impingement, came along, and he was out for a month and a half, and came back, and what a performance. And it's one of these things when people start to act like they did after he did that, it's not just you thinking it was quite the performance. It was life-changing for that young man who's still very humble. But my favorite part of that was maybe not the pitches, but when Murray State, and I don't blame him, tried to step out of the box, try to throw off his rhythm a little bit. He got so mad he started spitting out there. Was spitting left and right, just wanting to throw another pitch. But it was fantastic to watch. Obviously,
sounds like Andrew Fisher and Zach Root, Dudley.
yeah, good friends. It'd be great. I think it'd be great if those two guys got drafted by the same team and minor league camp together. But they're probably going to be too high. Yeah.
You know what's crazy is I think he threw 113 pitches or something like that. But
his previous high, by the way, was 91, and that previous high was set 2 weeks earlier.
Wow. And 1 through 10, that Arkansas pitching staff, and they're going to be challenged. It's LSU, Arkansas tonight. But this College World Series, it's flying by. But I like to listen to those guys on the radio. They don't even know what day it is because they're doing so many games on Sirius XM Channel 84. Listening last night, but there's no better sport on the radio than baseball. Would y'all both agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because you're forced as a play-by-play announcer to visualize it for your audience. And I think there is more to visualize and set the scene for in baseball. It also can be, baseball is such a romantic sport when you have that emotional attachment. And that's when you can really bring people in. Is with that scene, a lot of those scene setting and the anticipation for the moments. There's so many strategy things that you can do. So yeah, it definitely makes you think, and it gets into the feels for sure. So that's probably why it's at the top.
And it paints a picture. I mean, that takes. There are a lot of great TV announcers that have come through over the years, but I love a game on radio. It's why one of my favorite books of all time. Stephen King's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, which was a young lady stuck in the woods and she listened to baseball to get through it. But yeah, as I've said all along, I love the game, and if my dad hadn't put me on a tractor at 12 years old, I would still be playing third base for the Cardinals at age 61.
It's crazy. There was a former Alabama football player, Sherman Williams, got in a little trouble when he played for the Cowboys out of Blount High School in Mobile. And a friend of his, who I know is a huge Alabama supporter in every way possible, knows Sherman quite well. And he's got a foundation now with David Palmer. They go out and do a lot of really good stuff. Well, when Sherman was in Forest City, Arkansas, at the lockup for like 13 years, he said what helped him get through it was listening to sports talk radio. That was his venue to the outside world. And so, you never know who's watching, who's listening to us. But I tell you, the two of y'all nailed it about baseball. I love that. It's like watching an artist paint. You watch on TV and they're telling you a little bit of this, or a great chef, Justin Wilson. Man, my mother watched him every single week. He would do something. He'd go, aye.
It took me for the longest time when they would say they're going from left to right on your radio dial. And I was like, wait a minute, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, volume 10 is another slang term. It turned up volume 10 here on the radio. Hey, beautiful Saturday afternoon here, Busch Stadium, wherever you are. And Vince, it, and Dudley and Brendan, everybody watching. It's the greatest game to attend in person too. It's just different.
It is, and I kind of combined both of those loves when I was young in Florida. This is, I guess, early college years and wanting to be a play-by-play announcer and loving baseball. With the Grapefruit League in Florida, there was more teams there at the time, and wanting to work on play-by-play, I'd bring a little cassette recorder and with a headset microphone. And I would contact all the MLB teams at their spring training sites and ask them if I could use empty an empty booth to practice play-by-play. And I'd say half of them would let me do that. So based on the ones that would say yes, I would make myself a schedule, drive around the state, and then go call a Cardinals Pirates game.
That's cool.
You've never told us that. This is so cool.
And then you get to use all of their media stuff and everything, and the quality sucked. But it's not like I was ready to send out. I was still very young, but it allowed me to get reps and then just work on my craft a little bit and just feel important and feel like what it would be like moving forward in the business. And then, oh, by the way, it is such a great game. So that was a fun memory for
you youngsters may think that sounds silly, but I wrote my own stories. I'm not that the Democrat Gazette and the AP stories weren't great, but I thought I could do better. When I was in my early teens, writing Cardinal replays, stories that they were my own. And I think there are a few kids that thought, what is this dude doing? But look at me now.
Well, we got to wrap up here in a few minutes. I got a storm about to come in, and I've got to run outside and do something. But I'm going to tell y'all, you people watching, if you want to be a journalist, these are two role models right here, and just the way Brendan does it too. And it's there's just a certain thing. The quality wasn't bad, Vince. There's no way it was, because I was a junkie like that as a kid too. You would think about, Brent Musburger's great deal. You are looking live at Florida Field in the Swamp in Gainesville, and they are here. They've been here for days before Tennessee comes in here to take on the Gators. I mean, but you are looking live. That just some of these taglines that you never, ever get over. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, one of the best in the business. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Follow these guys. Dudley, quickly tell them how they can follow you. Vince, do the same thing. And as always, thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. Let us know what we can do to help you as well. Give us tweets and retweets, and we'll do the same. It sounds like treats, but tweets. Dudley, go ahead.
It's at hogville.net. We cover all 19 Arkansas sports, and then Fearless Friday is our high school site. I'll be putting some more stuff on there this summer as we go along, and then Dead Sports. Unlike Anwar, I might tweet a little bit.
You do. It's good stuff. Vince.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, on all the socials, Vince Sports, Instagram, Facebook, and on X/Twitter. It's all the same handle, Vince Sports. And then doing a lot, on TV as well for the Sports Source and the Sports Source Digital Network on the local ABC affiliate in town. Now 2 shows on the weekends that I'm a part of. You can just jump on YouTube, search for Sports Source and Sports Source Digital Network, and you'll find some of the shows that I'm on there as well.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the history of the world. Live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Check us out on this channel. Executive producer Brendan Martin putting together content. We got a lot today. 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern. AU Undercover with Ronnie Sanders, Kevin Scarpinski, Doug Dean, and me. We'll cover a lot. And then the Buddy Martin Show tonight. So share the show. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Good night, John Boy.